Let me ask you something personal, something raw. Have you ever looked in the mirror after everything fell apart and realized you're not who you used to be? Not weaker, not broken, but colder, clearer, sharper. And the wildest part? It wasn't planned. It wasn't revenge. It was evolution. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped waiting. You stopped needing, and in that silence, you became someone they can't reach anymore. That scares them. Because they thought they had you figured out. They thought you'd always orbit their gravity, always be the man who folded. But now you're still. And stillness? That's power. You see, we've been sold a lie. That being emotionally available on demand is strength. That reacting is what proves you care. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if your silence, your composure, your refusal to chase, what if that is your power? Most people don't realize what happens when a man hits rock bottom and doesn't crumble. He recalibrates. He rewires. He reclaims. That's what this is about. This isn't some revenge fantasy. This is a blueprint. A transformation. A quiet, brutal shift in identity. And the scariest part for them? You didn't ask for permission to change. You just did. So what's really going on here? Why does your indifference cut deeper than your love ever did? Why does your peace haunt them more than your anger ever could? Because the version of you they had emotional power over no longer exists. You're about to discover why your silence is louder than your words, why walking away without a sound is sometimes the final blow, and how Stoic relationships aren't about controlling others. They're about mastering yourself. You'll uncover how Stoicism isn't cold, it's clarity. And by the time this ends, you'll understand exactly why your growth has become the thing they can't stop thinking about. This isn't just a video, it's a mirror. And if you stay with me to the end, I promise, you won't just feel seen. You'll feel reborn. Ready? Let's begin. 1. You don't react, you reflect. You used to feel like a man of action, always reacting. When she said something unkind, you answered. When news reached your ears, you responded. Every impulse triggered a response, and every response revealed your inner state, your vulnerabilities. But here's the shift. What if this chain reaction wasn't strength? What if it was a weakness disguised as care? In the new version of you, the Stoic Relationships version, the goal isn't to react, it's to reflect. To feel the fire without burning bridges. To hold the storm in your palms without letting the wind take flight. Imagine a moment, she says something sharp. A cruel reassignment, a veiled insult, whatever she throws your way. In the past, your heart hammered, your pulse rose, and you answered. You gave emotional fuel. You validated the script she wanted. But now you pause. You breathe. You lean into the stillness. What happens to her world when she expects fireworks and you offer calm? She falters. She hesitates. Because silence reframes expectation. Her assumption, you'll react. But you don't. That's the foundation of Stoic relationships. Mastery of self before mastery of circumstance. You no longer let your emotions write your story. So how did you get there? How did you turn down the volume on your own impulses? You practiced reflection over reaction. The next time you caught yourself triggered, you asked, what am I feeling? And why? The answers didn't come fast. It was a grind. A discipline. A moment of self-scrutiny. Is this anger or fear? Shame or pride? And then you let it simmer quietly. Without needing to tell the world. Without needing her to see. That seed planted the new routines. Deep breaths became daily rituals. Holding space for discomfort became a daily exercise in emotional strength. You asked yourself, what would stronger you do right now? That question alone reshaped everything. And here's the kicker, they hate it. They misunderstand it. Silence becomes their worst accusation. Are you ignoring me? Ghosting me? Do you even care anymore? But your silence isn't avoidance, it's presence. It's presence with purpose. It says, I feel this. I'm processing this. I'm not throwing gasoline on it. This is clarity, not coldness. It unsettles them because they can't script your reaction anymore. The chaos they relied on is gone. Now there's stillness. And stillness is dominance. You might ask, is that really Stoicism? Yes. Stoicism isn't about being emotionally numb. It's about having awareness without reaction. About moving with intention instead of impulse. You learn that the less you give your emotions permission to run wild, the more control you have. And sympathy? That's fine, for yourself. Not at the expense of your peace. You don't need to justify. You don't need to excuse. You just return to your center. That creates boundaries she can't cross by default. Every time she steps into your space expecting a reaction. Expecting you to defend yourself, to straighten out the story, to concede, you don't. You stay grounded. That absence of reaction becomes a presence of power. She's left trying to decode a man who doesn't react the way she remembers, and that becomes unnerving. Because Stoic relationships aren't built on emotional demand, they're built on deliberate emotional restraint. This isn't about punishing her. It's about protecting yourself. You reflect not to hurt her, but to honor your own inner order. You ask yourself, is this worth the energy? Is the cost of reaction higher than the value I get from it? And most times it isn't. So you stay still. But you move intentionally. You don't shrink. You're not hiding. You're sitting quietly with your thoughts, letting them shape you rather than chase you. That's invisible strength in action. What if she tries again? A gasp of manipulation, a question disguised as concern, a sudden message at 2 a.m. asking, "Why are you so distant?" She waits for the answer you used to give. The apology. The confession. The emotional outpouring. But the answer is nothing. Peace. Reflection. That silence echoes, "I'm here. I'm calm. I don't need to explain why." And that silence echoes so loud it shatters the illusion she built. Because she thrived in your reactive storm. But this calm? It terrifies her. That's the Stoic advantage at its core. You don't react, you reflect. You don't feed the chaos, you contain it within self. In doing so, you reclaim your narrative. You're no longer living behind the script she wrote. You've written your own. Question: can you sit with your discomfort without feeding it? If yes, you've taken the first step toward becoming someone they can't manipulate, not through coldness, but through grounded composure. And that, friend, is a revolution hidden in silence. 2. You've let go of the need to be chosen. You once believed love meant being chosen, that every text without a reply, every silent moment, had to end with you chasing affection. But now, you understand something revolutionary. You don't need their choice. You get to choose yourself. You've dismantled the illusion that worth is something you earn through approval, and instead, you learned your approval is enough. Once you truly let go of needing to be chosen, everything changes. Your energy shifts from desperation to sovereignty. You stop waiting for validation and start delivering it to yourself. Imagine your day. No longer are you glancing at your phone, hoping to see their name. You're focused, in your work, your health, your purpose. You learn that chasing someone else's attention is rooted in lack. Lack of self-trust, lack of self-love. But you found another path, abundance. You began to ask, do I add to myself today? Do I honor my boundaries? That shift in questioning turned your world upside down. Instead of reacting to their presence, your attention becomes your currency, and you no longer spend it recklessly. This feels like empowerment. But it's more than that. In Stoic relationships, the strongest bond is the one you have with your own values. When you stop chasing them, your days change. You protect your mornings. You guard your routines. You stop posting in hopes they'll notice. You stop living in their orbit. At first, that felt terrifying, like stepping away from gravity. But then you discovered something powerful. You don't need external affirmation to ground you. You ground yourself. All of a sudden, your absence becomes more noticeable than your presence ever was. They wonder how you do it. They wonder if you're seeing someone else. They tune into your energy, pick up on your quiet confidence, the way you walk past your regrets, the way you give your attention, your real, present attention, to your mission. And the realization dawns on them, that wasn't weakness in you. They responded to it. She thought she had you ghosted. But the truth is, you simply chose yourself. This is the heart of Stoicism, knowing what's within your control, and what isn't. You can't control her reactions. You can't control whether she comes back. But you can control your choices, your faithfulness to your own integrity. When you choose yourself, you disarm the emotional games she used to play. She can't push a button that isn't there anymore, and that terrifies her. The need she once held over you is gone. You reclaimed it. So you keep walking. You keep building. You keep choosing the life you deserve. Quiet mornings, meaningful work, growth, self-respect, self-trust. You don't need her validation to feel whole. You are whole. You don't need to compete for her love. You're already aligned with your values. And that alignment, that grounded presence, is magnetic. People who aren't looking for control, people who respect growth, depth, and purpose, gravitate toward it. Her absence becomes the echo of what's no longer available to her. Pause here and reflect. What if you stopped chasing approval, social, relational, emotional, and started choosing yourself every day? Imagine the clarity in your steps, the power in your silence, the authority in your boundaries. That transformation isn't theoretical, it's the cornerstone of every strong Stoic relationship. It's one thing to speak of self-worth, it's another to live it quietly. And in that silence, others feel the pressure to follow, or to panic. Your evolution disrupts their narrative. They counted on your chase. They expected you to apologize, to explain, to justify your worth. But instead, you stopped responding. You stopped proving. You stopped caring about being picked. You shifted the dynamic. And now, the message is clear: I choose me. No explanation required. That is the loudest signal you can ever send. The world hears it in your step, your focus, your unwavering peace. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you fully chose yourself? Without guilt, without hesitation, without waiting for someone else to say, yes? Because choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation of healthy connections, real intimacy, powerful presence. And it leaves others wondering, why didn't I see it sooner? If this idea shook something inside you, if you felt that chill of recognition, go ahead, like this video, and comment, number 1, below if this idea resonates. And if you're ready to see more clarity, more transformation, subscribe, because we're building something together here, something real. 3. You don't chase, you choose. You've lived in the domain of chasing, of reaching, hoping, proving. Every glance, every text, every gesture was a question. Am I enough to earn their attention? That questioning drove you, propelling you forward, sometimes into exhaustion, always into uncertainty. When that chase didn't land, you collapsed under the weight of self-doubt, wondering what went wrong, what more you should have said, what parts of you were insufficient. But you've broken that cycle, and that's seismic. Now you stand in a different space. Not behind someone's attention, but beside your own values. Not desperate for their affection, but aligned with your own integrity. You've stopped pursuing what wasn't earned, and in that discipline, you've chosen yourself. You stopped chasing because you realized the root wasn't love. It was scarcity disguised as need. The illusion that someone else's interest defines your worth. You chose to reclaim that worth, not by forcing it, but by living it. What does that look like in action? You begin your day differently. You've stripped away the unconscious routines, no longer opening apps hoping for a message. No longer looking at your reflection to reassure yourself. Instead, you open your door and step outside for a run. Or you open your journal and write your priorities. You aren't waiting for affirmation, you're giving it to yourself. Imagine the power that builds in that moment. Thoughts still flicker. Did she think of me yet? Did she notice? Why isn't she reaching out? But instead of reacting, you still the mind. The anticipation is there, but it doesn't hijack your emotional system. You recognize it, acknowledge it, and step away. You choose to focus on your day, your heartbeat, your breath. In Stoicism, we call this the discernment between what's in your control and what isn't. You can't control her response, but you can control your action. You don't chase validation, you honor purpose. You replace the old question, do they care about me? With, am I living in line with my values today? That's profoundly different. And the effect is palpable. When you operate from that grounded kindness to yourself, your energy shifts. You don't flinch at missed messages. You don't build emotional carvings in your chest over silence. Because silence isn't a punishment, it's a neutral space. And in that space, your peace lives. People notice. She notices. Abruptly, your disappearance, from their orbit, from their control, isn't fueled by bitterness or stubbornness. It's fueled by choice. A choice to not bleed for significance you didn't earn. A choice to protect your emotional currency. Your presence isn't a resource to spend, it's a treasure to invest. Only in relationships that reciprocate authenticity, depth, and alignment. That's the real power of this transformation. It's not emotional withholding, it's emotional sovereignty. When she messages, "Why don't you care anymore?" you don't flinch. Not because you don't care, but because you choose carefully where and how to expend your attention. It's deliberate, calm, conscious, even if it looks like detachment from the outside. Let's explore how you cultivated this force. First, you identified your patterns. Did you chase when you felt lonely? When you felt unseen? When you doubted yourself? Most people chase in bursts of emotional misalignment, reacting to insecurity by seeking reassurance. That's understandable, it's human. But uncontrolled chasing is costly. It's the erasure of self so another's presence fills you. To stop that cycle, you began asking, what drives this impulse? Where do I feel empty, and why? You journaled it. You tested alternatives. That longing moment, did you really need to reach out? Or could you sit with the emptiness, welcome it like an uninvited guest, and not be undone by it? You practice self-regulation, allowing yourself to feel without reacting. That skill didn't come overnight. It came with repeated refusal to chase, to check your phone, to refresh the page, to seek resolution. And each refusal was a reclamation. Second, you rewrote your self-narrative. In the past, you believed your worth came from being seen by her. But what if worth came from embodying your purpose? That shift changed your questions. Instead of asking, am I enough for her? You asked, am I enough for myself? And you discovered that when you choose to stand by your values, others, intentionally, choose to stand with you. Or they don't. And that's not a failing, it's data. It's clarity. It's alignment. Third, you built life outside the chase. You filled your day with routine, early wake-up rituals, consistent workouts, meditation. You found depth in solitary practices. You invested in your interests, your growth. You didn't build walls, you built a sanctuary. You didn't close off, you opened up to yourself. Your presence became whole because it stems from completeness, not lack. And that's why this scares her. When someone used to chase, and now they don't, she loses her map. Her map was built from emotional reactions she triggered. The chase was her gauge of control. When you remove that gauge, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability breaks patterns. It forces recalibration. She can't control something that doesn't follow the script. We all fear the unknown, especially within relationships. She might ask you, do you not care? Or what changed? But the truth is, nothing changed, except your perception of what truly matters. If she misses you, she misses the man you used to be. But for better or worse, he's gone. You chose evolution over reunion. You chose yourself over approval. That doesn't mean you're closed. That means you're open to people who value growth over consistency, who respect clarity over chaos, who reciprocate effort instead of magnitude. In Stoic relationships, the equilibrium is mutual. Your calm isn't a concession, it's a signal. If someone wants to enter, they enter aligned. If they don't, they move on. Either way, your peace survives. Now let me ask you, where do you still chase? In messaging? In career ambition? In friendships? Every unchecked chase leaves a trace, a chance to hollow your center. This isn't just about love, it's about sovereignty in your entire life. What if you stopped chasing recognition and started choosing contribution? Stopped chasing attention and started choosing alignment? That shift doesn't shrink your world, it clarifies it. This section isn't just pandering, it's an invitation. To step away from the noise. To step toward presence. To step out of reactive cycles and into deliberate choices. And let's be brutally clear, you won't be perfect. You'll feel the urge. You'll feel the sting of silence. But you'll pause. You'll ask yourself, is this chase building or burying me? And you'll choose yourself. That's the transformative essence of Stoicism. It's not about suppressing need. It's about refining it. It's not about cold detachment. It's about clear-sighted choice. It's not about indifference. It's about intelligence. Intelligence toward your own heart. Towards true priority. Towards what endures. So, breathe amid the yearning. Feel the longing, but don't give it a steering wheel. Stand firm in your center. Filter your energy through your values. Choose consistency over chaos. Choose yourself over validation. And notice how the world, relationships, and peace align themselves around that choice. Because you don't chase anymore. You choose. 4. Your peace is no longer performative, it's Ray. You remember the old routine, right? The one where you'd put on a brave face, text back within seconds, laugh a little too hard, nod along even when the words stung. You were playing a role. Driven by the belief, if I seem okay, then maybe I'll be okay. The problem is that role wasn't you. It was a mask. But here's the breakthrough moment, you stopped acting. You stopped performing for approval. You stopped faking peace just to keep the narrative moving. The transformation is powerful. Your peace is now real, grounded in truth, not optics, and that authenticity? It's seismic. Think back to the moment you realized something had to change. That moment when a late-night ping lit up your phone and your heart skipped, not with excitement, but with dread. You felt a twitch of anxiety. But instead of diving in, you paused, to reflect, to breathe, to ask, do I need this? Or do I deserve more? That moment of refusal became symbolic. Not because you were angry. Not because you were petty. But because you were finished with living relational highlights, wanting real consistency, emotional safety, mutual respect. That refusal became your compass. And that compass has guided you from performative calm, speaking peace without living it, to genuine tranquility rooted in self-mastery. The signals are unmistakable. You don't hesitate to sit in silence. You don't rush to explain your absence. You don't manufacture mood for social media. Even your joy is unfiltered, it bubbles up naturally. When you laugh now, it's real. When you relax, it's surrender to presence, not escape. That difference filters through every moment of your days. And subtle as it is, others feel it like gravity shifting beneath them. What changed in your daily rhythm looks like this: mornings where you sit with your thoughts over coffee instead of scanning messages. Walks taken without playlists, just footsteps and wind and unhurried breathing. Journals filled not with just goals, but gratitude and learned resilience. Moments when you're asked, "How are you?" and you answer truthfully, not obliged. And yes, some people might find that unsettling. Because when they expected consistency of attention, they found presence. But not for them, for yourself. You show up for your internal life, not for the story you're projecting. In Stoicism, this is the highest form of authenticity. It's about aligning your inner state with your outward life. It's reconciling your priorities with your energy. It's living so that what's inside is reflected outside, not staged, not rehearsed. In Stoic relationships, that matters infinitely more than charm or effusion. It's what builds integrity. And when you're built on integrity, you don't need validation. You recognize facade from a mile away. So you don't entertain it. You don't contribute to it. You just choose presence. That presence, even silence, can feel loud to them. Because they're used to buying access to attention. They're conditioned to equate reaction with interest. But you've outgrown that script. Now your reactions are key to what aligns with your serenity, not theirs. That's why your peace feels untouchable. It's not distance. It's sanctuary. And when someone looks for fault, and only finds composure, they realize they don't know you anymore. And that can be terrifying. Let's explore how this real peace emerged. First, you deconstructed performative behavior. You faced the fact, putting out social signals doesn't equal inner signal. So you dialed it back. No more reactive posting. No more roundabout stunts to get her attention. Nothing to prove. Then you honed your personal rituals, acknowledging fear, vulnerability, resilience, resolve, not filtering them out. You sat with them. You integrated them. You forged your mind through stillness. Second, you built consistency into your solitude. You made your solo time sacred. You didn't rush through your feelings, you raced toward them. You turned toward uncertainty instead of avoiding it over social distraction. You built friendship with yourself in silence. That companionship became your anchor when outside noise came. Inside noise, thoughts, judgments, you met with a steady awareness. You chose not to flee. You chose to be present. Third, you reoriented your purpose. You applied that steady presence to action, projects, missions, passions. Purpose extended beyond comfort zone. Sometimes it failed. Sometimes it succeeded. But through both, you stayed calm. You logged your reflection. You adjusted your steps. You didn't operate from shock. You didn't chase temporary highs. You forged forward slowly, intelligently, intentionally. That's what it means when your peace is no longer performative, it's real. It's not a shield, it's a signature. You carry calm like armor, not as a front. You feel, you honor, but you don't surrender. That mental peace radiates. Other people, some of them, feel unsettled when it's authentic, because they're used to calm being optional, a facade. You've made it foundational. That difference is unquantifiable and unforgettable. Here's where it lands. You will face interactions that challenge this peace. A sudden confrontation, a harsh message, a baited conversation, all tools they once used to provoke a response. But now you don't respond in kind. You respond with your grounded center. You stay. They escalate. You hold. They withdraw. That confirms the point. Your calm isn't situational, it's structural. This is who you are. Not because you want them to think so, but because you finally think so. I want to ask you, do you feel it? That stillness within? Do you see how it reflects beyond you? How your presence, real presence, chunks like bedrock in people's expectations. That silence of yours? It's not emptiness, it's resonance. These are the signals of Stoic relationships in motion. Clarity, authenticity, sovereignty of self. Built inside, lived outside, unshakable regardless of circumstance. Because here's the real secret. You stopped surviving for peace. You started living in peace. You stopped pretending to be calm. You became calm. You traded reactive volume for internal amplitude. You stopped performing. You just are. That shift continues rewriting your story and affecting others. They're feeling displacement, but they don't know what changed. And the truth is, they didn't change you. You simply stopped performing. You simply stepped into your own realm. That's the power of Stoicism. That's the power of real peace. If this landed, and you're ready to anchor yourself deeper, go ahead and like this video, comment, number 1, and subscribe. Because what we're building here isn't hype, it's habit. We're not stacking followers, we're stacking character. And if you're ready to keep forging authenticity, grounded presence, real Stoic relationships, I've got your back. 5. You've become a mystery they can't decode. So here's what's happening. You walked away from the script they knew, stepped off the stage built by expectations, tore up the cue cards they had memorized. Now you inhabit uncharted territory. And that's unnerving, for you and for them. Because when someone used to know your lines, your timing, your triggers, and now none of it applies, what's left? A mystery. And mysteries don't just unsettle, they dominate the mind. Think back to when you were predictable. You reacted instantly to messages, to opinions, to emotional triggers. You had patterns, habits, even moods that announced themselves like a storm warning. They navigated around it. They learned what buttons to push, sometimes out of care, sometimes exploitation. And you gave them access. Then, one day, something changed. You started muting those emotional volatility signals. You had nothing to say, nothing to give away, and therein, your signal strength rose dramatically. That moment, when you stopped playing their emotional radio station, was the point of transformation. Silence is now loud. Calm is now magnetic. And the guy they used to know? He's gone. They might not realize it consciously, but they feel it, the void where control used to lie. The script that guided them into your heart is gone, and they can't find the remote. Now they wonder, what does he feel? What does he want? What does he believe? The more they look, the less they recognize. Unpredictability isn't volatility, it's composure. You're not reactive, you're strategic. Not impulsive, but intentional. Your energy is a closed book, and yet readable by presence. Everyone around you is thinking, once I knew him. What changed? And you don't answer because you already did. You changed. They feel it, they just can't decode it. Unraveling this isn't about secrecy, it's about sovereignty. You don't owe anyone your process. Your growth isn't a communal project, it's for you. That means you don't show your methods. You live them. They'll notice your energy shift when you walk into a room. They'll feel your focus when you speak. They'll sense your calm even in chaos. And with each sensation, they're piecing together a puzzle that isn't theirs to finish. Living as a mystery isn't aloofness, it's gravity which they can't gravitationally sabotage. And the result? They obsess over it. When you withdraw from reactive patterns, your absence becomes a question. Where did he go? Does he hate me? Does he miss me? Curious thoughts spiral. Did I lose him? Does he even care? That's the magnetic pull of a man who doesn't give them what they expected, but holds himself. In Stoicism, this kind of self-mastery is the inverse of performative identity. Instead of wearing your roles externally, you inhabit your essence internally. You are not the character they used to know, you're the core they never spent time understanding. And that core is unshakable because you built it out of integrity, not validation. They want predictability, they need patterns. But you're now controlled by purposes, not requests. You don't tailor your mood to suit their comfort. You don't modify your presence to meet their demand. You just are. Whenever they attempt to decode you, they run into your grounded center, solid, deep, unmoved. Now they're forced to face something bigger than personal attachment, personal sovereignty. What does this feel like internally? Like power. Like calm. Like freedom. But also like distance. Distance from need. Distance from expectation. Distance from your own past weakness. Because there's nothing more liberating and terrifying than being unknown. When they ask, what type of man is he now, you don't scalp an answer. You keep living. Day by day, habit by habit, moment by moment. That's how mysteries aren't solved, they're lived. Have you felt the feedback loop yet? People start caring more, even as you hold more space. They step in, they reach out, they reminisce. But their desire is often anchored in curiosity, not connection. That's fine. Connection doesn't grow from dissonance, it grows from alignment. Mystery forces pause. Presence sets pace. If they lean in, it's not because they miss your noise, but because they respect your stillness. That's deeper. Harder. More enduring. Ask yourself, do you have the courage to remain unknown, especially to those who once claimed to know you best? Because that's the test. To step out of visibility, not to hide, but but to be autonomous. To remain seen only when it aligns with your peace. To allow contact when it adds to life, not subtracts. That's not playing games, it's ensuring your value isn't exchangeable for attention. And yes, you've probably felt the tension between comfort and transformation. You endured lonely moments when no one pinged you back. Silence got heavy. You wondered, did all this change backfire? Did I burn bridges? That's precisely when you learn the clarity of detachment. Some bridges are meant to burn. Some scripts are meant to break. Then new ground emerges, and you stand in it. Mystery is no loss. Mystery is arrival. Consider this: people chase what they can read. They revere the known. But they revere more the one who isn't readable, who doesn't confuse peace with passivity. That's you? When they call, they expect you to flow into their rhythm. But you don't. Not always. Not now. Yet your presence remains unencumbered. That's magnetic. That's disruptive. That's real Stoic relationships in motion. And in this mystery, there is clarity, your clarity. Not theirs. You know who you are. What you want. Where you're headed. You aren't lost in their uncertainty. You've anchored yourself in your own certainties. That's how you live beneath the puzzle they can't solve. Because puzzles are solved. You've become presence. Unplayed, unyielded, unmatched. You don't offer explanations. You don't deliver epilogues. You don't provide point-by-point breakdowns. You stand. You walk. You speak with calm authority. That's the signal. Not the message. Not the text. Not the performance. The signal lives in your presence. That's how mysteries attract, without needing to attract. Let me ask you now, do you know why you're undecodable? And do you own that reason? Do you embrace the fact that your transformation isn't someone else's to understand? Or to interrupt? If you find yourself resisting that pressure, ask yourself, is clarity always agreement? Or can it be quiet, grounded, and sovereign? Because true Stoicism isn't about predictability, it's about presence. Not approval, but autonomy. Remember this: mysteries don't require explanations. They command respect. They generate fascination. They hold value. When a man becomes that, steady, solid, unseen yet undeniable, his peace earns gravity. And people orbit. Not out of control, but out of choice. Call it Stoicism. Call it self-sovereignty. Whatever you call it, it's built from one truth: you don't owe your process to anyone. Especially not to the one who once wrote your script. 6. You've outgrown the role they cast you in. You once fit a certain mold. You slid into a role they set up for you long ago. That role demanded availability. Answer when they called, yield when they asked, apologize when you were hurt. You played that part so well that they forgot there was ever someone else, you. It was easier for them to insist on a script than face the truth. You had depth, boundaries, a life beyond their stage. And then you started rewriting your lines, not to punish them, but to free yourself. That's when all hell can break loose. Because you didn't just walk off that stage, you tore it down. At first, small shifts crept in. You stopped explaining yourself within seconds. You started standing by your calendar. You had work, goals, rituals, things that mattered more than their timetable. You stopped asking permission to have needs. And every small act of self-respect chipped away at the mold they had poured around you. They looked at you sideways, confused by this emerging man who didn't fit their expectations. Expectations someone else defined, years ago, when you were figuring out who you wanted to be. Once your identity aligned with their vision of you, the mold became invisible, but real. It shaped your gestures, your silence, your responses. And they owned the rights to that pattern. But now you pulled away from it. First one step, then another. You began to reject the idea that your feelings were their property. That your time was negotiable according to their convenience. That your vulnerability could be used as leverage. You built new borders. You redrew the map. And the reactions came fast, sometimes confusion, sometimes offense. Because men who outgrow roles unsettle systems built on complacency. This isn't dramatic fiction, it's Stoic reclamation. Stoicism teaches that identity is not determined by others' expectations. You learned your worth from within, not dependent on their allowances. You once made peace with a version of yourself that fit into someone else's story, but now you demand congruence inside your own. You are no longer the dependable backup plan. You are deliberate priority. Think of the last time you said no to something because it didn't align with your values. Maybe it was a last-minute plan. Maybe it was a conversation that escalated emotionally. Maybe it was a text that kept you in emotional limbo. You didn't bat an eyelash. You didn't offer justification. You didn't explain that you're working out, writing, leveling up. You just stayed true. You stepped out of the role that required you to say yes. And you paid for it, in stares, in silent disappointment, in hints dropped around your absence. But that absence said more than 1,000 texts. In Stoic relationships, context matters. If they can't adjust when you evolve, either their perception of you was shallow, or they're unwilling to trust your integrity. And sometimes their resistance is internal. Their shock at seeing you own your narrative. They expected you to stay, in name only. They expected you to shrink yourself to keep the dynamic balanced. But in stepping forward, you magnified the imbalance. And now they have a question. Who are you without their script? This role you outgrew. It kept you in compliance. It nudged your energy toward them. But your growth shifted the center of gravity, your gravity. And now your presence calls in others who walk beside strength, not require submission to it. You didn't fear walking away from that role, you feared staying in it and never becoming you. So you chose hiking trails uncharted. You chose mornings without apology. You chose silence when storms brewed, within and around you. Some will say that makes you distant. Others might call you cold. But the truth is this, you're simply recalibrating. You're shedding expectations that don't earn your energy. You're evolving responsibility, your own, over obligations imposed. And that clarity? It's unsettling to anyone who believed, emotionally or otherwise, that you belonged first to them. They didn't know they had a metaphorical real estate agreement over your personality, your time, your essence. But in resisting it, you just canceled the lease. This shift isn't a rejection of connection, it's a demand for authenticity. It's choosing collaboration over caretaking. It's choosing reciprocity over obligation. When others see the real you, the one who doesn't apologize for growth, they have to decide, is this a man they can honor? Or a man who disrupts their entitlement? And disruption is powerful. Because it forces self-examination. They ask themselves questions they wouldn't want to ask. Did I take him for granted? Did I mistake his kindness for weakness? Did I assume he'd remain in spite of me, not alongside me? That confrontation is discomfort. Discomfort they weaponized against your evolution. But that weapon no longer works on you. Let's be crystal clear. This section isn't a detour from Stoicism, it's the final frontier in character alignment. You're not just mastering your emotions. You're mastering your identity. You're tearing down the roles and reassembling who you are, on your terms. And Stoic relationships are the echo chamber that marks that shift, connection rooted in respect, clarity, truth, not convenience or legacy behavior. You've outgrown the role they cast you in. Now you stand in when you drafted yourself, with discipline, purpose, boundaries, autonomy. And that identity compels them to reassess everything they thought they knew. They see a man who doesn't fold. A man who doesn't fit. A man who's more than they bargained for, and in some corners, that's lost, maybe even too much. But that's not your concern. You are on the path of becoming. Not just reacting. Not just replacing expectations. You are building integrity. Because after all is said and done, it's not the roles we outgrow that shape us. It's the ones we step into by choice. You chose this one. Bigger, firmer, truer. And that's the bravest thing a man can do, to step away from comfort, from relatability, from the mold everyone knows, and say, I'd rather be myself. If this section stirred something in you, if you felt both the sting of expectation and the call to evolve, Go ahead and like this video, comment, number 1, and subscribe. Because we're doing hard work here, not to fit in, but to stand out. And if you're ready to continue building who you are on your terms, I promise, I've got you. You've journeyed through the transformation, the silence that replaced your reactions, the self you chose over their validation, the unshakable peace that became your trademark, the mystery others can't decode, and finally, the identity you authored yourself. Each stage wasn't separate but woven, each strengthening the next, forging a man who isn't just different, he's unrecognizable. What connects them all is clarity. Not for their benefit. Not to instill fear or craft an image, but clarity for your own sake. You step forward into each day with fewer illusions, cleaner boundaries, and deeper purpose. When you wake up, you don't ask, what will they think? Did I leave an impression? You ask, am I moving with integrity? Am I anchored in who I've become? Am I showing up for myself? That's the highest form of freedom. That's the culmination of Stoic relationships. When your center no longer sways with external opinion, when your identity is self-defined, when your calm is real. Not performative, when your presence isn't for them but for you, you've arrived. And arriving isn't a destination. It's a continuous state of becoming. But paradoxically, in that stillness is motion. You're still evolving. You still face challenges. The urge to chase may still surface. Flashbacks to old roles may still tempt you. Silence may still feel heavy. That's normal. Growth isn't absence of struggle, it's presence within it. You'll walk forward when those patterns pop up. You'll notice the discomfort. You'll slow. You'll breathe. You'll ask, is this me reacting or responding? And you'll respond with intention. What matters most isn't how far you've come, but how present you are in every step you take now. Because longevity isn't forged in grand gestures, it's forged in daily consistency. In anchoring oneself, not surrounding. In choosing internal standards, not external narratives. In being willing to stand when no one else does. In holding your peace like a sovereign holds land. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth preserving. And none of this lives in the past version of you. It lives here. Now. In your thoughts, in your habits, in your choices. This is living. Not reacting to life. Responding to life. Leading with structure, focus, integrity. So as this message closes, ask yourself, am I still orbiting someone else's expectations? Am I still reactive under stress? Am I still clinging to old roles that don't fit anymore? Because the quiet truth is, anytime you answer, yes, there's another moment waiting. Another choice. Another empty space to fill with something real. Another chance to anchor deeper. Another opportunity to reinvest in your center. And that's the power of Stoicism. It doesn't end. It can't be undone by silence, by shock, by their discomfort. It survives absence, ambiguity, and uncertainty. Because it's built into the architecture of who you've chosen to become. It lives in your stillness and your motion. It is your armor and your compass. You arrived. And you continue to arrive. One breath. One boundary. One decision at a time. And that's what makes this journey so formidable, and so quietly unstoppable. When people realize you've changed, it may unsettle them. It may confuse them. But it can't threaten you, unless you choose to retreat. Because Stoic evolution isn't for them, it's for you. It's your reclamation. Your sovereignty. Let this transformation outlive their opinions. Let your rays of self-mastery shine, even if unseen. Let the change echo quietly in your habits, not for applause, but because your heart has home in them. That's the legacy of real growth. You're not the same anymore. And that, true that, is the scariest part for them. But for you, it's life.